It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the FinSide. It ain't the left side.
Thank you, Solo D. Welcome to another episode of On the FinSide here with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. We're continuing our player-by-player breakdown of the Miami Dolphins 2020 draft class with Auburn cornerback Noah Igbinoghene. Repeat it with me, Igbinoghene, because you're going to hear, basically you're going to be able to separate the educated Dolphins fans from the non-educated ones, we'll say, based on how they pronounce this guy's name moving forward. But, Paul, before we get into the pick, one thing that was interesting was I'm sitting there watching the draft, and it's about pick number 24, and I get a text message from two different people who both tell me that DeAndre Swift is going to be the pick, the running back from Georgia. And then we get on the clock, and it's bleeding down. I'm like, come on, make the pick already. And it's a trade, and they trade from 26 to 30. And then when they trade to 26 to 30, ESPN's talking for 20 minutes about how the Dolphins should look at a running back, and they're talking about DeAndre Swift. So I'm waiting. Get down again, and it is not a running back, but a cornerback, where the Dolphins are stacked with Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. Noah Igbinoghene ends up being the pick. Were you surprised by this, and what did you think about it?
I was a little surprised, but once I digested it, I liked it. Igbinoghene, who every time I hear his name, and this has nothing to do with football. I don't know if you remember that old Muppet skit with the manamana, do. Every time I hear Igbinoghene, it comes out in my head like that, and my brain after goes do. But that aside, football-wise, Flores likes to deploy 5, 6 defensive backs at a time in a lot of situations, and he likes physical corners that can press you at the line of scrimmage and stick to you down the field in that press man type situation. So, yeah, Miami has Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. We've seen that players get hurt, and you can, as a few folks have put it, Flores is a big believer in you can never have too many good corners, and it's a great problem to have. So we're going to see a lot of scenarios where Igbinoghene is out on the field with Byron Jones, with Xavier Howard, with Bobby McCain, with Eric Rowe, and the little guy we're going to talk about soon, Brandon Jones, and possibly throw Nick Needham in for good measure. So, this is a great problem to have, having a great depth at corner. I like the pick because of the way Miami does use defensive backs, and Flores in particular, and what they're looking to do. I think we're going to see more and more of the 3-3-5 in given situations, possibly even more DBs than that, depending on what they feel like doing. Because you remember back with New England, there were times they ran with 0 defensive linemen at times, and confused the hell out of the offense.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. This pick I was immediately intrigued by, because as soon as when they signed Byron Jones, I looked at the rest of their depth chart and thought the most frustrating thing is you're paying all this money to Byron Jones, Xavier Howard, Eric Rowe, and Bobby McCain, and then you get into the games and you see the Dolphins' 5th and 6th cornerbacks, our defensive backs on the field, get eaten alive, and because that happens quite a bit, and that's why I really wanted the Dolphins to draft several defensive backs here too, because with Noah Igbinoghene, if say he learns quickly, he's your nickel back there from day one, you could have that dominant secondary in a division where young quarterbacks Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, and presumably Jared Stidham are trying to grow and carry their teams. If they have to go up against Miami and face a dominant secondary, man, could ruin a lot of those plans.
Yeah, they're going to have more than Darnold seeing ghosts based on what this secondary is right now, and given the fact that they've also improved the pass rush this offseason. And you've heard me talk, our listeners have heard me talk at length. I don't always blame the secondary when guys get open, and I don't always blame your pass rushers when they don't get to the quarterback. If your DBs can't cover, you don't have much time to get to the quarterback. If your pass rushers can't get to the quarterback, your DBs are going to end up looking bad in situations because the quarterback has all day to throw, and somebody's going to get open after a few seconds down the field. Somebody is going to get open somewhere the longer that you have to cover. So, love improving the secondary. It improves our pass rush as well.
Yeah, and on the player, I mean, this guy has an unusual story. He turned 20 years old this past November. So, I mean, he is one of the youngest players I've ever seen enter the league. So he's not going to be 21 until the end of his rookie year. And he switched from wide receiver to cornerback at Auburn 2 years ago. So you've got a guy who at 18 years old was a wide receiver. When he was 19, he played in his first year at cornerback and started. And then this past year, he got even better. And if you want to look at the value he can bring as a player, he is every bit the reason that Auburn pulled that upset against Alabama this past year when he was going up against those first round wide receivers. Now, there's a lot to learn with him still. He only had one career interception. He needs to get his head around faster. So a lot that he needs to be taught. But I like that Brian Flores identified him and felt that this was the guy that they wanted to groom on that defense, along with Josh Boyer as a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I love the long-term prospects with Noah. I mean, it's going to be the same thing we've talked about on previous episodes, the long-term high ceiling of some of these players and leadership and value. And Igbinoghene has that in spades. He was one of the guys that you and I both liked, even though it was a little surprise to see him go this early in leading up to the draft.
Yeah, there were a handful of defensive backs I wanted kind of in this area that could move into the slot. Igbinoghene was one of them, along with guys like Christian Fulton, Jalen Johnson. But Igbinoghene brings a lot more upside than Jalen Johnson and Christian Fulton. I mean, he's also somebody that only 20 years old is very filled out. He's 5'11", almost 200 pounds, ran a 4.48, 40-inch vertical. So he certainly has the measurables too. It seems like he has it all. He just doesn't quite have the experience yet. And so he's somebody I can expect to challenge immediately for that fifth defensive back role. And then if we get, 2-3 years down the road and you want to get Byron Jones or Xavier Howard off a contract because they're on the wrong side of 30, now you've got a 23-year-old Noah Igbinoghene who might be able to move out to that first or second cornerback spot.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that. And for me, I give this grade an A- for him because it's a big step in completing the secondary.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a B+ on it. I also like that they moved down and also got a 4th round pick too. I mean, and of course, as we know, Paul has never seen a trade down that he doesn't like. I'm kind of in that same way, but Paul kind of takes it to an unhealthy extent. But I know he liked that. No doubt about it.
It's my strange addiction.
But they got an extra 4th round pick and they put that to good use the following or on day 3 of the draft too. So he's somebody I'm certainly looking forward to seeing a lot more here as a rookie. And that's going to do it for our breakdown of new Miami Dolphin Noah Igbinoghene, drafted 30th overall from the University of Auburn. You can follow Paul and I on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the FinSide. Solo D, take us home.
It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the FinSide. It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the FinSide. Listen, Dolphins fans across the land all tuning in to see what